Alrighty, guys, we're going to go ahead and move on to 7.5. As I'm sure you know, we will not be meeting back in school again for the rest of this year, so this is how it's going to work for the rest of the year. So let's get this going. Alright, so just a little reminder of what we did last week. Okay, basically, if you have a square root equation like we see here, our goal is to make sure that root is by itself. So we go ahead and when it is by itself, we go ahead and square both sides. Okay, when you do that, what comes out from under the root is x minus 2. Over here, 4 squared is 16. All right, and then it's just a one-step equation, right? Just go ahead, add your 2, get your answer. All right, it's not, these guys were not supposed to be too difficult for you. It was supposed to be actually hopefully pretty straightforward. So I saw some of your work and it was pretty good. All right. Oh, also, speaking of which, don't forget by 3 p.m. I do need your attendance filled out so I can keep it accurate, and that way, the schools and deans and stuff don't come after you. So we don't want to do that. All right. So once again, our square root is by itself. We go ahead and square both sides. Okay. All right, and we're left with this again, one-step equation. So go ahead, add your 7. All right. So there's that. Okay, if it is not by itself, if your square root is not by itself, kind of like this one right here, we should get it by itself first. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. All right, I see this negative 10s on the outside, so what I'm going to do to that is I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to add 10 to both sides, so I would be left with the square root of 2x plus 1 is equal to, all right, negative 5 plus 10 is a positive 5. Okay, now square root's by itself, so go ahead, square both sides. So I'm going to have 2x plus 1 and 25 over here. Okay, two-step equation, subtract 1. All right, and divide by 2, which I'm sure you guys are pros at by now. If you can't, I mean, you should be anyway with two-step equations. So there you go. All right, and then once again over here, this minus 6 is on the outside, so I want to do the opposite. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. The opposite of a minus 6 is add 6, so I'm left with this. Go ahead, square both sides. All right, again, when you square this side, everything underneath the root comes out. Other side, you just square. Okay, so two-step equation, subtract 1. Divide by 5, and boom, we have our answer. Okay, so that's what we ended the other day with. Okay, so hopefully, and that's what your worksheet was about, so hopefully you're doing well on that. So we can move on to the next thing here. Okay, so we have some more radical equations. All right, that's all we're going to be focusing on, some more stuff like that. Okay, radical equation is just an equation that has a variable under the radicand, and then of course, if it's a square root, it means the index of the root is 2. Okay, so so we'll do something a little different here. So it's kind of the same. All right, again, our goal is to make sure that whatever side the root is on, it is by itself. Okay, so in this case, both sides have roots, but both sides are by themselves, so that's good. All right, so we're going to go ahead and actually square both sides. And what's nice is everything that's there just falls out. Okay, so now this just shouldn't be anything different than algebra 1. Okay, move your x's to one side, your numbers to the other. So in this case, I'm going to move my 2x to the left, so I'm going to subtract it. I'd be left with 1x plus 2 on this side. Okay, and then it's equal to 7. Go ahead and subtract that 2. You're going to be left with x is equal to 5. Right? Nice and simple. Nothing really too crazy here. The only difference is you've got, 2 roots on each side, but when they're by themselves like this, all you have to do is square, right? So it's not, this shouldn't be super difficult for you. All right, you should be able to handle these on your own. And if not, you can always, email me or on Wednesday or Thursday, depending on what day your period meets. I will have a live session up and you can ask any questions you need. Okay, so again, go ahead and solve this. Okay, subtract your 6, Okay, so x is equal to 1. All right, so nothing really special there. Just go ahead and square everything, right? Okay, all right, so this is more examples of this. So we got one more here, over here. Again, both roots, still the same thing. Square both sides, they're both by themselves. So go ahead and everything that's underneath falls out. Okay, and then solve, right? So I'm going to do 2 steps here at once, so that way I can kind of save myself some time here. All right, over here, oh gosh, there's a square underneath it, but does that really change the question that we're dealing with? No, we're still looking at, I see 2 square roots, they're both by themselves. I want to get rid of them, and in order to do that, you just square both sides, and remember, everything that's underneath just falls out. All right. Well, now what's more difficult about this one is you've got some like terms. You got a lot of like terms, and they're all on opposite sides. So again, I suggest move the x's to one side, the all the numbers to the other. So in this case, I see x squared and x squared. So if I subtract x squared, they're actually going to cancel each other out, which is kind of nice. Over here, I've got a 4x and a negative 7x. I'm going to move my 4x over to get negative 11x on this side. Okay, so what I'm doing here, just for visual, is I'm subtracting x squared. Okay, I'm subtracting 4x. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up subtracting this 6. I'm going to move it over. So it's kind of a lot happening at once. All right, but that's what I'm going to do here. And then if I do that, I get a negative 11x equals 11, so x is equal to negative 1. I know it's kind of messy in there, but again, guys, it's just combining your like terms, moving across equal signs, all right? Nothing new. This is all kind of really Algebra 1 stuff. Stuff that you should be able to handle. Okay? All right, remember that? To the 1/2. Okay, to the 1/2, what does that really mean? This really means the square root, right? That's what that means. Okay? So don't forget about that. If you see 1/2, don't panic. All it means is, hey, that's a square root. Okay, and we know how to get rid of square roots, right? We go ahead, we square. All right, so this is what I have. All right, and at this point, I hope that we're pros at this by now, because we've been practicing this, hopefully, for 2 weeks. Okay, again, I've got this to the 1/2. So this 2 is actually on the outside. Okay, and then the 1/2 only applies to what's inside that parenthesis, okay? So you don't get confused. Now remember, before we square, I've got a 2 on that outside, I got to get rid of it. So this is being multiplied here. This is 2 times the square root of. So to get rid of times, I divide. All right, so I have that. All right, 12 divided by 2 is 6. Okay, now I go ahead, square everything. Right, as soon as your square root's by itself, it just becomes, let's square it. Okay, and we have that. Okay, so nice and easy. Really, the only thing new today was that the double root. Okay, we will get to one more new thing later. Okay, and it's actually, it doesn't show up on this one, but it will show up soon. Okay, so what it says here is check for extraneous. Okay, so remember, guys, extraneous. Remember, we see the word extra in here, right? So it means extra solution that does not work. It was a vocab word that we had like towards the beginning of the year. Hopefully, you guys remember that. If not, just now you know. Okay, so again, goal is still the same. Go ahead and get that square root by itself. So if I do that, I have x squared minus 5 is equal to x minus 5. Okay, right? So all I did was move that positive 5 over, and remember, if you cross the equal sign, you switch the signs, all right? Now, I need to square this side and square this side. Okay, so remember, this here really means that. Okay, so this is a shout out to all of you that like foiling. Okay, right? Because this is a FOIL problem. All right, this side, x squared minus 5, nice and simple. This side over here, first times first, x squared. Okay, then we go to the outsides. All right, so I have negative 5x. Okay, insides, negative 5x. And then finally, last two together, which is going to be, oop, I'm out of room, plus 25. Okay, go ahead, combine your like terms. So x squared minus 5 is equal to x squared minus 10x plus 25. Okay, so there you go. Now go ahead and move your like terms. All right, so in this case, I'm going to move my x squareds to one side. Doesn't matter. I'm actually going to take it either way. They're going to cancel each other out here. Okay, so x squared minus x squared is 0, so that goes away. I'm actually going to subtract 25 over to get negative 30 on this side. All right, and then finally go ahead and do your division. All right, in this case, we don't have to check for an extraneous solution because there is only one solution. Okay, so when we only have one, you don't need to bother checking. All right, if there's two, you need to check it, and I'll show you how to do that in a second when we get a situation where there's two. All right, so this one here. Okay, again, go ahead, move that 3. So I'm doing that. All right. Go ahead, square both sides. Remember, when you square this, this is really a foiling question. Okay, so I'm going to do that really fast here, and I'm going to combine the like terms right away. So x times x is going to be x squared. I'm going to get a negative 3x and a negative 3x, which is negative 6x. Okay, and then negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. All right, so there's my FOIL. All right, now what I want to do is bring everything to one side. Okay, so I notice this time the x squared will not cancel out. So that's where my problem is going to start. Okay, so if I go ahead, I'm going to move everything from the left side to the right, okay, which is then going to effectively make that side 0. This side is going to be x squared. All right, if I subtract that 5x, I get negative 11x. And then I'm going to go ahead and add 1, which is 10. Now, if I'm looking at this right side, okay, I have to factor it. Okay, so remember, factor is what multiplies to the last number, adds to the middle. Okay, so what multiplies to 10 adds to the middle? Well, that's 10 and 1. Okay, now the middle's negative, so both of these have to be negative. All right, so finally here I get x minus 10, x minus 1. All right, I can just go ahead and rewrite it. Now there's one more step to this. I got to actually figure out my answers. So remember, the answer is just the opposite of what you see. So I get x is 10 and x is 1. Okay, now I have to check these, right? This says check for extraneous. There are two answers here. We have to check them. So what does that actually mean? It means go back to your original problem and plug in these numbers and see, do you get the correct answer? Okay, so if I go ahead and I plug in 1, for example, all right, so 5 times 1, anywhere I see an x, I'm putting a 1. So 5 times 1 minus 1, that's 4. So the square root of 4 is 2. 2 plus 3. Does 2 plus 3 equal 1? No, it doesn't. So because that doesn't work out, this is extraneous. That is an extraneous solution. Extra solution that does not work. Okay, if I do 10, if I plug in 10, 5 times 10 is 50. 50 minus 1 is going to be 49. Square root of 49 is 7. 7 plus 3 is 10. So 10 is my actual answer here. All right, so that's the first time going through extraneous. So we'll go through a couple more examples here in a part 2 video, but there's part 1 for you. So hopefully you guys will have it down.